Hello, 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 and welcome everyone to Satsang. And on a beautiful Sunday just afternoon for me, and so hope you're having a wonderful day, whether it's just beginning or ending, depending on where you are in the world. And I'm so glad you have decided to come and hang out with me. It's always gratifying to see the increasing interest in this subject, and little by little, it's beginning to dawn on humanity as a whole that we have gotten off track somewhere. That our world is not headed in a particularly good direction. Division is increasing, polarity is increasing, bigotry, racism, hatred, division, the threat of tyranny and despotism, just the extremes of poverty and wealth that the pharaohs would have been jealous of. So there's obviously something fundamentally wrong with, not with the world. I mean, look behind me. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? It's utterly breathtakingly beautiful. Right? And it doesn't take much for me to go and get these things from these beautiful flowers to have here, as well as just the view out the back. So the earth is okay. Animals, without us humans interfering, they're okay. They get along quite nicely. Thank you very much. So there's something off. There's an essential, to my regard, and the regard of non-dual teaching. There's a fundamental misconception, a misidentification with who you believe yourself to be. That the essence of all problems comes from a sense of identity. When you identify yourself with something, or identify simply means to become identical with, you take on all of those characteristics. You become that. If you become a fundamentalist Christian or Muslim or any religion, you literally become that. You take that on. Those attitudes are your attitudes. Without you, it would just be a bunch of words, just a bunch of ideas. But with you, it becomes a living thing. You literally animate every idea you take on as yourself. So this question of who am I? Who am I? Without the beliefs, without the conditioning, without all the things that I've been taught, without all the things that I've adapted and adopted. Who am I? Just the pure, original me. Who is that? What is that? Now, as I've pointed out before, this kind of an inquiry cannot be accomplished in the way that we would investigate anything else. If I want to know something, at least in the West, our idea of how to know something is you take it apart, right? You examine it, you look at it from all sides, you take notes on it, you categorize it, you compare it to other things. This is the way our discursive knowledge works. But you can't do that with yourself, because you never experience yourself outside of yourself. Now this can be a real mind blower to people, but the way in which one comes to self-knowledge, self-realization, is not through classical analysis. The entirety of the scientific method, for all the value that it has, is completely incompetent and irrelevant when it comes to the exploration of myself, because I cannot objectify myself and study me. I'm here. And so instead, I have to take this other approach. This other approach. And it's the only one there is in this direction, is non-dual self-inquiry. Who am I directly? A non-dual experience of myself. By non-dual, nothing abstract me. I mean simply, I'm not knowing myself in terms of anything else. I'm knowing myself directly. That also means non-dual is non-conceptual. It is not a conceptual experience. Right? If you just pause for a second and notice the simplest but most obvious fact there is, and that is the fact that you exist. I am. Now notice, that's not conceptual. It's not a thought. We can put it into thoughts, and I just put it into a thought to express it when I say the words I am. But I'm pointing you to something that is a non-dual, a direct non-dual experience. This is you knowing you as you, right? Not secondarily. This is not hearsay. This is not you stepping outside and looking. This is the experience you are having right now, right at the center of you. See, that's not conceptual. That's direct. It's not intellectual. People say, I get it intellectually, but I don't really experience it. Well, you're experiencing it. There it is. Now the mind will, and the way we've normally been taught, will jump in and try to make something out of it, right? Turn it into something. But that doesn't change the actual nature of the experience you're having. It's completely non-conceptual. And it's self-evident, right? It's self-validating. Nobody has to tell you that. Not even your parents needed to tell you that. Before you differentiated anything, before there was a me and a you, or a mommy and a daddy and me, there was just me. There wasn't even the thought, I am. There was just the complete, direct, non-dual, undifferentiated experience that I am. Now, just looking at that a little bit closer, that experience of I am, that knowing that you are, without any reference to anything other than yourself, that's consciousness. That's self-awareness. That is self-realization. This is myself completely undefined, unrelated, undifferentiated, indistinguishable, just pure sense of being. And looking at that pure sense of being, just being with that, your awareness of yourself. And it is a non-dual awareness. I have to use non-dual terms. You are aware of yourself. And it's almost as if, well, I'm aware of consciousness, as if there were two different things. This is a direct non-dual experience that can't be put into words. Now, just paying attention to that, is that sense of being, is it male or female? Is it black, white, Asian, native, aboriginal? Is it old or is it young? Is it tall or short? Does it have a color? Does it have a location? Now you can answer all these questions, right, directly. You didn't study it. You didn't pick up a book. Didn't do any research. This is simply being with I am. And exploring the nature of I am. That is, the nature of myself. The nature of my own being. This is non-dual self-inquiry. That's all there is to it. All there is to it. It is just radically different because it doesn't take any kind of subject-object relationship as an approach to self-knowledge. It's not a denial of the scientific method. It's not a denial of belief in the scriptures and all of those things. It's not a denial of anything in any relationships. It's just in the genuine quest to know myself purely and directly, none of that will help you. Because none of that is the purpose of that stuff is not this. It is to know other. It is to describe other. It cannot describe yourself. So I'm going to leave it for that because I know questions are compounding already. But I wanted to introduce you to this idea. It doesn't deny any aspect of experience whatsoever. Clearly, we're having all sorts of experiences in relationships, and with people we can see, people we can't see, other worlds, dimensions, just everyday life, nature, with a bug. All of these experiences are happening for sure, but none of those experiences can tell you who you are, because you can't experience yourself. You can't have an experience of yourself because you cannot step apart from yourself. You are not two, you are one. So all you can possibly do is start from that place of the simple recognition that I am. And explore it like somebody exploring a frontier, like a scientist really examining something down to the nth degree. But directly, subjectively. You can only explore yourself as yourself. So, on that note, I will have a sip of my stuff here. And you'll notice I'm not using my bambisha. Hello, Roberto. Sabugo. Hello, Sabugo. Hi, GP. Good to see you again. Rosario in Madrid as well. Sabugo gets right to it. When one abides in awareness without objects, just aware of the I am, which is what I was just doing, why do we still expect a certain state of mind? Reading Ramana's teachings or Nisargadatta's, yours as well, one gets this notion that by suppressing thoughts, one would eventually arrive in a perfect, blissful, thoughtless state. Is this necessary? Is an abiding in our true nature just a calm state without ecstasy? Many thanks. When you ask later, do you recommend EFT to establish on our true nature and gradually abandon the body-mind behavioral patterns? Boy, is there a lot in this question, Sabuko. Oh, that's very good. Abiding in awareness. Now, first off, awareness is what you are. There's not a you that abides somewhere. This is self-realization, self-discovery. This is not a self-becoming. This is not you getting into some kind of a state. You are touching that place which is beyond all states. The place from which all states, all experiences, all modulations, all comings and goings are witnessed. It itself does not come and go. It has no attributes, no characteristics, no limits, no boundaries. So it cannot be experienced. And because you are one, not two, you cannot have an experience of yourself. You can only be the ultimate experiencer. Now, when you are in that state, for lack of a better word. When there is when there is a recognition that this is what I am, and you are making the earnest attempt to abide there, which from this perspective as practice is simply keeping my attention there, because you're always there, but you're really kind of reeling in the renegade or the misbehaving having attention. And part of it is that we've come, because of our spiritual education, to expect a certain state of mind to be there, a certain set of qualities. But as you might have heard in the opening discourse I did there, the actual you doesn't have any qualities that are discernible. It is that which discerns qualities, but it itself is not bounded by any quality or attribute. Now, that expectation of a state is trying to create a concept or a kind of experience or state or emotional state out of what in fact is complete and utter silence, emptiness. This is the deeper meaning of bliss. It's like it is the total absence of the motion of mind, which is always being driven by a sense of lack and therefore desire, and is stuck in this wheel of desire and fulfillment, desire and fulfillment, desire and fulfillment. Desire does not exist for the self. What could the infinite one possibly desire? There is nothing outside of itself. Now, trying to describe that blissful state is impossible. It's just pointing you. Right? So when you're there and that sense of an expectation of that you're going to find something there arises, recognize it for what it is. It is a thought attempting to create an experience which it will then later brand as spiritual. I had an enlightenment experience. I had a spiritual experience. I saw God in colors and angels and the like. It can be a great, fantastic experience, but as long as it's an experience, it's not you. This is a quest to find you. This is to say, get rid of the experience. You're not have any experiences. It's fine. Just don't mistake them for yourself. Right? The non-dual path is a path to you, for you to find you. So they're pointing at this state that I was talking about at the beginning. Explore it. Okay? And you'll notice thoughts will come up. But if the thoughts don't get your attention, right, you discover that bliss or that peace, or stillness is the word Eckhart Tolle likes to use, and I really like that one as well. Christ called it the kingdom of heaven, is that emptiness. It is that total absence of the energy of desire and fulfillment. Now that doesn't mean that the thoughts and the feelings of desire and that sort of for experience aren't going to arise. They will, as you well know. And they will continue to. Matter of fact, they'll continue as long as there's a body. It's just going to happen. For the sage, it's just a peripheral. It pays no attention to it. Right? It's as if it's not there at all. But but the sages eat, so there's a desire there. Right? They sleep at night. If they're cold, they put on a blanket or a sweater or something. There's no relationship with thought. That I have to have a certain kind of thought or a certain kind of experience, or I can't have a certain kind of thought, or I can't have a certain kind of experience. There's no relationship with it. It's just kind of a modulation, a bubbling of energy. Like you're sitting in the ocean and bubbles are coming up or a wave goes by. There's no relationship with it. It's just, there it is. If I make oh my God, bubbles, oh my God. I've created that relationship out of thin air because there really isn't one, and it really doesn't affect me. When I say it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect you, the witnessing consciousness. This is all about continuing to identify yourself with the emptiness, with that empty, spacious place. That's the Ananda. That's the true bliss. When human beings hear bliss, they hear ecstasy. They hear this unbridled, just absolute, utter joyousness. Well, that can happen, right? Especially if you feel the falling off, a release from all of the effort and the struggle and the strife that you've gone through, that this pursuit of happiness in objects has been motivating you to do. When that stops, it is the sense of being fulfilled. There's an emotional ecstasy that can happen. Not always. Sometimes it's just kind of like like you've just come home after a good day's work. It's not, and it doesn't have this, right, that you wouldn't want to live in an ecstatic state all the time. You certainly want it. After a while, it would become boring. You don't want any state at all, right? You don't set up a relationship or an expectation for a state. Now, to get to the other part of your question about EFT, I use EFT to help stabilize the body, to help the body release a lot the energy that it has been holding on to, the beliefs that it's been holding on to, the assumptions, the energetic patterns, the programming, and even the sense of identity that has been energetically, embodied, programmed into, injected into, installed into the whole body-mind mechanism. And so I use EFT as a way of engaging with the body, right? To use touch as a way of bringing a sense of safety to the body, because the clutching that you experience in the body, the tension and resistance and the like, is all the body simply trying to protect itself. That's all it is. And when you're fighting with it, you create more of a sense of an absence of safety, so it becomes more attached to holding on. But the more that safety gets communicated through talk, through energetically, through transmission, through tapping, the more the whole system gets the message, it's safe. And that allows for the body-mind mechanism to let go of these patterns, to let go of the things it's been holding on to, and becomes much more malleable and willing to reorganize itself around the higher sense of being which you're seeing. So you don't have to fight, right, these thoughts and fight to get rid of them. You simply let go of them, right? By letting go, I mean you simply acknowledge them, but establish no relationship. It's just a thought. A thought was instilled in all of us, right? We've heard the great stories about Nisargadatta and Ramana, and I tell my own story, my night on the bridge and other experiences I've had, and we begin to think that awakening is just some kind of a Hollywood spectacle, right? And it's not. It's not. I didn't have a sudden thing like Ramana did. It's been this gradual unfoldment, little by little, huge insights followed by a period of integration. Somebody like Ramana Maharshi, the entire thing happened in just almost instantaneously. Once he got to that point of really yielding and surrendering to death, the entire thing collapsed and he just, But even Ramana Maharshi, there are stories about him getting angry at somebody but these reactive patterns come up. If there's no identification, oh look, I was angry. Then it is seen as simply a reactive pattern and not any kind of a testament of your character. You have no relationship with it. So I'm hoping that answers in detail, some degree of detail, what your question is. This peace that passes understanding is stillness, and it's there whether thoughts are there or not. Right? If a thought stops, it doesn't mean the silence now jumped in. Right? It doesn't mean there were thoughts and they stopped for a second because silence has intruded itself. That background of utter silence and emptiness has been there the whole time. The thoughts come and go. That doesn't. Recognizing that is the Ananda. And this is where you always are. This is where you are looking from. Thank you for that question. Beautiful. Let's see, Roberto. You had another question here. Roberto, how do you accept and de-identify from your mind and old patterns of behavior? GP, I feel really small and not capable. What should I do? Well, first off, you have to let go of trying to get the mind to change. It has nothing to do with what your mind is doing. To disidentify with it is to stop making yourself identical with it. I don't care how weird or extreme or off or out there the thoughts are, like I'm really small and incapable. They're just thoughts. And they mean nothing unless you create a relationship with them and say, those are my thoughts, how do I get rid of them? The moment you say that, you can't get rid of them. They're your thoughts. They're not your thoughts. They're just thoughts. And you've just so habitually taken them to be the truth of you, right? That it seems like in order for you to experience freedom, you have to get rid of those thoughts. The more you try to do that, the stronger they'll get. Now with you, because you've graduated my EFT coaching, I would just start tapping, in the coming clean, the very first part of it that I teach you how to do. And don't just say, I feel really small and not capable. I am small. I'm totally incapable. I'm totally incompetent. I can't do a thing. I'm a big mess. I'm useless. I'm never going to get anywhere in my entire life. And I keep going on that until you literally run out of things to say. And then stop for a minute and just check in. Right. Just call its bluff. Right. You're not those thoughts. That's not true about you. You're not small. You're not incapable. None of it's true. Right? But you're being held hostage by these thoughts, thinking they've got to go away in order for you to be free, which makes these thoughts more powerful. You're their slave. Please go away. Please go away. You're begging them to go away. There's nobody there. There's not a being there that's defying you. It's you. They're all you. You've decided. You've set up the relationship with it. You created them in the first place. Believe them, and now it's like flypaper. How do I get rid of this? Right? By recognizing they're not true. And one of the ways you can recognize they're not true energetically is to just completely voice them as if they are true, which I showed you how to do. And of course you have many tapping buddies now. It was part of the Tappist monks to get help with. He said, I believe in all this awakening, but I would like to know how to put it in practice in everyday life. In the end, one needs to work, buy a car, buy a home, date, go out. Yeah, of course. And you want to do that. You want to work, buy a car, buy a home, date, go out, have fun, without these intrusive thoughts. That's all you're asking. How do I live without the intrusive thoughts? Right? And the awakening is nothing other than recognizing you're not your thoughts. Right? And it's unfortunate. Some of us got stuck with some really shitty thoughts. I did. And I wish I hadn't, but oh well, too late. I did. This is just, and who cares where they came from? It doesn't matter. Right? You know what to do. You know what to do. And you've felt that awakening. You've said it. There's been a couple of times you've told me about it. Where, like, the time walking with your wife and some other times, there was just this freedom. It was just gone. But then it came back, because this is a very old habitual pattern. And it will come back until you don't pay it doesn't matter to you whether it comes back or not. Right? When there's no more audience, they will not come on the stage to audition. Robbie from Romania. Hello, Robbie. A little question for some advice. When fear arises, from whatever reason or trigger, what could be a way to tend to it, even when there is worry that it will create even more fear by seeing into it? Fear is, for the most part, imaginary. Right now, sitting where you all are, listening to me, sitting in your homes, right? Comfortable, warm, fed. Is there anything to be afraid of? Right now. Just right now. We're not talking about there was yesterday or a year ago, or there might be later. We're talking about right now. You know, your nervous system, your body, knows nothing about the past or the future. It does not decide how it feels. It does not feel or react to things based on what was or what will be. Only what is now. Now, if my attention is always on what will be, what might happen, what might go wrong, or even what might go right, I'm going to have a sense of fear and anxiety, even when right now absolutely nothing's wrong. Because that focus of attention is more powerful, is more dominant than the actual experience you're having. And therefore the body gets into a state of fear or anxiety in anticipation of something that isn't here. Now I think you can see that if that becomes the norm, which it has in the West because of media, you will never feel safe. You will never be free of fear. Because unless the mind is here and now, right? That is, the mind isn't, your attention is here and now, you will always be racing off to some other time, comparing now to some other time, and this time then what you will be feeling now is an imagination of what could go wrong in the future. It'll be felt as if it were the present reality, and you'll never feel safe. You will never feel peaceful. You'll never feel like everything's okay. But this is the incredible, venomous, insidious state of mind we've all gotten ourselves into, and it is the insidious state of mind that is promoted by governments, politicians, marketing of all kinds. Keep you in a state of fear. Look at what might happen. Right? What might happen. Take off all your clothes at the airport because something might happen. It is a weapon of the powerful, but I won't get into that. Let's just deal with it. Is there anything wrong right now? Yes, but there could be. And this little bit there, which is true, right? Some things can go wrong. You should have seen what I went through to get this set up today. I've got a different mic. I've been through 2 different computers because nothing was working. Yes, things can go wrong. Right? And with that little door opening, the mind then justifies focusing all of its attention on everything that could possibly go wrong. And what happens? Fear, constantly. Constant fear. But when you look, fear of what? Fear of a thought. Nothing more. Not fear of reality. Reality is sitting right in front of you. There's absolutely nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with any of you. You all have enough. Actually, by all measurements, you're all wealthy. Do you have more than you need right now? Do you have extra? You're wealthy. That's wealth. That's it. It doesn't mean a hedge fund manager or 10 million bucks in the bank or 10 billion bucks in the bank. Those are all gradations. Do I have more than I actually need in this moment? Yes. I'm wealthy. I'm wealthy. If you saw my bank account, you go, gee, are you kidding? No, I'm wealthy. It's in the bank account because I don't have to spend it right now. Therefore, I am wealthy. It's very simple. Right? So, let me see if I'm answering this correctly. Right. You don't create more fear by seeing into it. You create more fear by thinking there's something real you have to do in order to negate it. There's nothing real you can do. You cannot fix or deal with a problem that has not yet arisen. Nor is it possible to be so thoroughly prepared that you will be prepared in advance for every possible permutation that could happen. And look around. Look at all the unexpected things that can happen. Who expected COVID-19? You can't prepare. That desire to prepare as a counter to fear needs to be replaced by the understanding that I don't need to know what to do until the moment arises. And when the moment arises, I will have in that moment the resources necessary to deal with that moment. Prior to that moment, I have no need of those resources, therefore I don't have them. I do not have the resources to deal with an imaginary possibility. I always have the resources to deal with what happens when it really happens. And look at your life. Have you not dealt with every single thing that has come along? Maybe not as perfectly and as wonderfully as you've wanted to, but have you not always found the resources to deal with that moment? That's because the inner resources to deal with the moment appear with the moment, not 1 second before. Preparation in advance is the ego. And the only thing it does is shut down spontaneity, surprise, creativity, and fun. That's the only thing it does. It completely makes you an unspontaneous bore. There's just no life in that. There's no juice. Let your attention become so focused in right now that it overwhelms your senses. You have vastly more evidence that everything is going to be just fine and you'll be able to deal with whatever comes along than you do for the opposite, that it's not going to be okay and I won't be able to deal with it. You have almost no evidence of that. Even the times when you haven't been able to deal with it perfectly, you're still here. It didn't kill you. The only time you could claim, I didn't have the inner resources, is if you're dead. It's the only time you might be able to validate that. Yeah, well, that one was a bit too much. And guess what? You'll find you weren't actually dead. But that's another story. Did that answer for you, Robbie? God, I hope so. I'm sure you'll tell me if you didn't. And I think we have some people here from the Enlightened World Network, the network that is also sharing these satsangs with all of their people, and to whom I am very, very grateful for. So a shout out for you. They have they have 3 channels now on nutrition and spirituality, health and wellness, and there's one other I completely forgot. If you're here, Dr. Ruth, let me know what the other channel is, because I know Lisa, who is my my producer for my radio show and a lot of other things as well. She has a show on the health and wellness channel in Enlightened World Network, Enlightened Health Network, Fitness Network, something like that. I can't remember the names. Anyway, called Dating Your Diet, because she's a nutritionist specialist. So a shout out to you guys. Ava says namaste. Penny says hello, Sifu. Hello, Penny. Eva said, gee, I've spent a beautiful time today watching 4 amazing powers of creation. And I'm going to do it again and again. Presentation is really great. I'd like to say, as amazing as our powers of creation. So rich and deep. Thank you for that. Oh, you're very welcome. Those of you who might know, I have now released, it's available for registration, a new course I've created called Your 4 Amazing Powers of Creation. And in it I go into enormous depth. As I was just talking to Robbie about where our attention goes. That's the first of your 4 amazing powers. Where your attention goes literally creates the tunnel, the view you have. What you focus your attention on automatically filters out everything else, and this becomes the sum total of your reality. So if my attention is always on the future and what's could possibly happen, I'm not present in this moment, and my reality will be the future that I have no control over, and I will feel very, very unstable and insecure and anxious. Right? The second power is beliefs. I mean, what is it that tells attention where to go? It's our belief. If I didn't believe that putting my attention on what might happen would help me, I wouldn't do it. So, and it's one of the underlying beliefs that we all carry around. The beliefs are installed in us. They're enculturated into us. The vast majority of your beliefs you did not choose. You think you did, and you're acting them out, but you're actually acting out somebody else's version of life. The third is identity, which is the mother of all beliefs. It's the essence of all beliefs. And you've heard me talk a lot about identity, what you make yourself identical with. So the moment you do, it will collect more thoughts around it to support that sense of identity, and it will feel as if that's who I really am. When in fact, it bears no resemblance to who you are. And the fourth power you have is a superpower, and that's discrimination. The capacity to discern the difference. Without that capacity, we're completely lost. Because identity, which is a belief, all the beliefs that arise from it, and the focus of attention that is directed by it are all blind. They are completely directed by programming, unless some consciousness emerges that gives you the power to discriminate. Oh my God, that thought sucks. That's not really true. That's an instinct, it's an intuition, it's a special power that we have. And we all have it. And when it is cultivated, that is the door to freedom. It dismantles the beliefs, it dismantles the sense of identity, and completely transforms the focus of attention. Brings it into clear focus here in the here and now. I should have put this up. I'll put it up now. Those of you who would like to register for it, just go there. It's right at the top of the shop on my site. You'll click over to the Home School where you'll be able to purchase it. There's about 4 hours worth of pre-recorded material that I'm asking people, I really want people to do, to go through the recorded material. And then there'll be a live workshop, which is happening in 2 weeks. I normally just kind of open these things up for registration like about a week ahead of time, but I'm doing this longer because I really want people to go through all the material. As you go through all the material, then the live workshop can be a masterclass. We can really go into it in depth because you'll have all the other stuff out of the way. By the way, you'll have it all. You'll have a replay of that. If for some reason you can't register before that, and there's a couple of different ways to pay. Then of course we'll come. By all means, come. Don't pass up the opportunity. But if you can register early and check it out. I spent a lot of time on it, really thinking through, trying to cover every different aspect. So there was not a stone left unturned. There was no place for the mind to hide. So yeah, but what about, I think I pretty much covered every last argument it might be able to present. So just go to gpwalsh.com/shop. It's right at the top. There's a video where I explain more about it, and it'll take you to the Om School, which also has the same video on it, where you can actually do the registering, and hope to see you there. So very cool. Sue, hi Sue. Sue in South Africa. David and Elaine, good to see you guys. Marguerite, hello from Creuse, France. Diane from England, GP, found you recently. Love your teachings. Diane Blake, great. Yeah, you're new. Wonderful. And Edeltraud Fishnala. Luna from Italy. Well, hello, Luna. Beautiful. In Italy. Italy is one of the places I am looking to move to. Southern Italy. Marguerite, I dropped a big stone on the toe of my husband. When he got mad, I told him there's no cause and effect. Now he says, I misunderstood. Could you please explain? I was recently helping my son move, and a huge board, part of a bed frame, right on my toe. Oh my God. For about 36 hours, it was throbbing so badly I couldn't sleep. No cause and effect. He says, you misunderstood. I think a simple, oh my love, I'm sorry, would have been a better response. I'm so sorry. And stroke it, hug him, that sort of thing. I think that probably would have been a little bit more of a wise way of dealing with the immediacy of it. Cause and effect is an illusion. I want you to be looking at these things existentially. From the point of view of our everyday life, there does appear to be cause and effect, right? I forget the milk on the stove that I'm warming up for my latte. Almond milk. I don't drink dairy. Just had to throw that in there. And it burned. It overflowed. I scalded it, right? Which I did just a few days ago. Right? And so no cause and effect. I mean, to the normal way of thinking, it's an absurd idea. Right? So you don't want to take something like that and try to apply it to our everyday conventional life. Right? It doesn't bring anything to it, and it doesn't alleviate any suffering. Right? The pain that we feel is simply part of experience. Right? And in this experience, if I drop a piece of wood or something on my toe, the experience of pain will ensue. Right? Now, is there a direct cause and effect? There appears to be. Right? But I'm not that interested in that. That's not what I'm really looking for. I'm looking at it from a completely different perspective. I'm standing back here as pure awareness. And I'm not seeing a series of events in time. I'm seeing a series of happenings in no time, in this moment. Now, from this perspective, what happened here did not cause what was going to happen here. What happened here was simply whatever this particular stream or modulation or thing was happening. Now, that doesn't mean that the wood falling on my toe doesn't have pain in the next scene. But that which connects those dots is not cause and effect in time. It is simply what is unfolding in this moment. So you see, we're not trying to dismantle the way we normally do things, or say that this shouldn't happen, or there's no cause and effect, right? So you shouldn't feel any pain. Good try, but no, but no. We're looking at it existentially. How do things actually happen? And I'm just looking at it from the point of view of being completely present in this moment. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. This is everybody's experience. This is the non-dual experience. It happened. This is what you are experiencing all the time. The only thing you know is right now. And our ideas about the past are just ideas. You can't go into the past and verify any of it, nor can you go into the future and verify any of it. So any thoughts about the past or about the future are irrelevant. And time, cause and effect, is the idea of a past as it ripples, this river of time passing in front of my perspective. There is nothing out here. There is only right here. Now, from that point of view, what I'm experiencing right now is this particular modulation of consciousness, a particular unfolding, that is going to have its own kind of consistency to it. It's going to seem to have rules to it. Within the context of that dream, it's going to seem to conform to the rules of that dream. But when you step outside of that and see it in the larger context, well, suddenly those rules aren't rules. Within that context, and when I'm within that context, I wouldn't say, there's no cause and effect. I'd say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, what can I do? And try to fix it. I can but simultaneously I can step outside of that and recognize this whole thing happening is a dream. The wood, the board, the toe, the person, the screaming, the yelling, all of it is an image on the screen. And none of it is really happening. Now please don't go tell him that. It didn't really happen. You're not really here. I'm not really here. I'm just kind of easing you into the big picture. That this is the shadow images on the screen of the self. Always bring your attention back here, to the place from which it is being seen. The place from which it is being seen, all is being seen, is the only thing that cannot be seen. You cannot see where you're looking from. You cannot see what you are. So I think that's all I'm going to say about cause and effect for right now, because I'm coming up on an hour and I'm running and there's a lot of questions coming in. Martin. Hello, Martin. Namaste and G and everyone. Since humans exist, there are rituals, entheogens, have a hard time pronouncing that word. I know what it is. Altered states of consciousness. But we live in a time and society where almost everything is lost or forgotten. In fact, when I only mention meditation or spirituality, people roll their eyes. One of the consequences of not having ritual spiritualities integrated in society and a ban on, what are the consequences? On a ban on ethnogens. Thank you. Well, we can see the consequences. It was interesting in that interview with Bill Moyers, Joseph Campbell. Bill Moyers asked Joseph Campbell that same word. What happens when we lose our myths, we lose our rituals, we lose our... This is what you get. We have been... Because we don't have any... we have severed our relationship with nature, which was the only authentic reference point we had. Right? But that's been severed. We now live in a world made completely by the mind. And of course the mind is completely arbitrary, and without a reference point from it, it has no constant. So it just keeps doing whatever it wants to do. You know, like our economic system, it used to be tied to some kind of a substance, right? That it would be, it was gold, or in England it was silver, the pound silver, right? It was tied to something that gave it value, right? And then the U.S. changed to oil, and now we've abandoned the entire thing. We just make money, we just print it. It's not tied to anything. It's absolutely meaningless. And now I've heard some people talk about, yeah, that's great, that's the way we should be. We just make it up. We just do it. So it has no value whatsoever. Right? And this is what's happened. Now, this disconnect from nature, to just kind of wander in the vagaries of egoism, directly parallels what happens as children when we go from the undifferentiated consciousness and we identify with the separate self. That separate self has no roots, it has no stability, it has no foundation, it has no reality. There's nothing to it, it's completely and totally made up. We are seeing that played out on the world stage. So it loses its rituals. Well, it has rituals. The ringing of the bell at the opening and closing of the stock market is a ritual, right? We have all sorts of rituals, but they're now rituals serving this insane culture that we've created. They're not rituals that actually give meaning to us. They're not rituals that call us into a higher relationship. They're not rituals that call us back to ourselves. And so, if I'm completely enculturated into that world, right, that will be my world. I think it's stable. I think it's solid, and I'm gonna fight anyone who disagrees, or I'm gonna roll my eyes when somebody talks about meditation or spirituality or entheogens or rituals or shamanism or any of these practices that have roots. They're just going to roll their eyes at that. Oh, the primitives, right? Oh, that's just childish. Just like a parent with the childish behavior, until the child starts to act like that. But this severing actually had to happen. We're not going to go back. We have to discover a new, because we have dominated nature to the point, transcended nature to the point where we can control it. Now, we're so arrogant and egotistical about it, is that we think we can ignore it. Oh, push it aside, no big deal. Yeah, no problem. Just exploit everything, take everything. We don't have to. We don't have to take care of it. We don't have to replenish it. We don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. Now that's insane. We don't have to worry about changing the overall temperature of the water. We don't need to worry about that. That's insane. But so we've come full circle out of it. We were completely enslaved to it. We were completely at its mercy. Now we've completely rejected it, and now we have to go back to this place, the intelligent place. We went from dependence to independence. Now we have to get to interdependence. We have to consciously relate to where we are, what's happening, how we actually work with things as they are, working with the Tao as it is, not the way we think it should be. And that will require some humility, that will require understanding, that will require an opening of the heart, it will require a recognizing greed for what it is, an insanity, a pathology, a poison, not a virtue. All of these things will have to be recognized or we'll destroy ourselves. When they are, then we will develop the new rituals, the new interfaces, the new ethnogens, the new ways of coming into harmony with the Tao consciously. So humanity as a whole is really paralleling what the experience of someone born, becoming identified with the separate self, and awakening, which is more than just the undifferentiated consciousness of the child. It's the undifferentiated consciousness, but fully conscious of it, which the child is not, which is why the fall. What's the fall? And humanity is following the same track. We can't return to childhood, so we can't return to the practices that when we were completely dependent upon nature. Right? That because we're not anymore. Right? So now we're going to have to become in harmony with them and create new ones. Joseph Campbell pointed it out. He said one of the most significant events of all time was that the landing on the moon. Not that so much the scientific achievement of it, which was a big deal, but he was referring to a picture of the Earth, that picture of the Earthrise, the picture of the Earth taken from the moon. Now, prior to that, no one had ever actually seen that. We had these ideas of the cosmos, right? And there was God out there somewhere, or concentric crystal spheres around us, and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, there was this brilliantly beautiful, alive little bubble in the midst of this utter vacuousness of space. And it was a transformation of human consciousness. We never developed a proper mythology and integration of this into our souls and into our culture. So we still had people quoting scripture and Bronze Age science, right? Trying to find the God in that. Well, the God Yahweh, the God of that age, simply doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. It's completely inappropriate. And so we've been left without a rudder. We've been left without any kind of meaningful explanation and stories. But this is necessary. This is how you find your way to Satsang. So, because you want to discover this way that doesn't throw the old way out. It subsumes it in a higher position. Transcendent doesn't mean I get out of it. This goes away, it's unimportant. I explain it away, it's insignificant. It means everything else gets pulled up into a larger experience that accommodates all of it, and therefore touches all of the things that make us human. The rituals, our relationship with nature, our relationship with each other, our relationship between the genders, all of that. Right? And yes, they've been lost or forgotten, but they'll be recovered with a new context. It's like finding ancient music, right? I remember there was an explosion of music. Music is horrible now. There was an explosion of music all of a sudden from all different cultures and ages and old instruments and that sort of thing. The old was, it wasn't just playing Baroque music, but we were playing modern music on Baroque instruments, all sorts of... So the context was new, but nothing was lost. Right? But it wasn't a going back. It was a going forward without losing anything of the past. And I think that's what we're on the verge of. And I think it's important to see that humanity as a whole, the we that is awakening, right, directly parallels the awakening of an individual. And the more you are devoted to and earnest about your individual awakening, right, the more you are going to be contributing and accelerating the we awakening. So, thank you for that question, Martin. Don't remember seeing you before. I think you might be new. And by the way, spirituality will then become integrated into... It has to step out of its role of its religious garb and into its real role. And then it will once again be informing culture rather than just being a side note or a religious idea to manipulate for the overall interests of the culture, which in our world is greed and money. Hello, Kiran. Hello, Liza. Hello, Kiran. How do we feel a sense of abundance in our day-to-day life? Recognize yourself as abundance. If abundance is real, it must be a permanent attribute of the self. It can't be a feeling. Feelings come and go, so therefore they are not real by my definition. They're not a reality. They're an experience, but not real. For me, real is that which is. Right? It is. It always is. It never changes. What is cannot become what is not. So experiences are not real. They have a moment of existence and then they disappear. You know, an ecstatic moment, a very happy moment, a very sad moment. They're not real in the sense that they're real in the sense that I'm experiencing them, but they're not real in that they are not a permanent state, a not permanent characteristic. They are experiential. They come and go. So they have a momentary existence and then they disappear, but they have no permanent truth to them. So if you're looking for the feeling of abundance, which is the law of attraction kind of thing, I need to feel abundant. They do tricks like thinking about abundance and, just like you think about anything, the nervous system reacts as if it's really there. So you think about that, you will have the feeling of abundance. And as the theory goes, if you do that enough times, abundance will come into your life. In that entire picture, there's no understanding of what abundance actually is. It's regarded as an internal state, an emotional state, and a set of physical circumstances. That's not abundance. What's the source of abundance? What's the most abundant thing you can think of? Infinitude. There's nothing more abundant than the infinite, limitless. Well, there's only one thing that is limitless, and that is the self, consciousness. From that perspective, abundance and being are one. If that is seen, there'll be no more concern about what appears out here. Right? I won't have any sense of being anything other than abundance, so I won't be able to see anything other than abundance. Even if you have absolutely nothing, there'll be no feeling of anything but abundance, because abundance is what you are. It is not a state, it is not a set of conditions, it is the reality of being. It is the infinite nature of consciousness, and it is the fact. Lack is the imaginary opposite of it, and we couldn't even talk about lack were it not for the reality of abundance, of perfect wholeness, which is the real essence of it. Abundance for most people means I got a lot of stuff, or I feel wealthy, or something like that. But the reality of it is an unbreakable uninterrupted sense of well-being, a sense of wholeness. I'm whole. If I'm whole, I'm not lacking anything. I'm whole. If I'm incomplete, then I'm lacking something, and then abundance would be, for me, whatever I think it is I'm lacking, if I can get it, then I will not be lacking anymore. But my essential wholeness, if I am already whole, then abundance is what I am. That's how I approach it. Hello, Faith. Hello, G. Hello, Jay. Hello, Anja. Hello, John Watson. Somebody knows when it begins? Did I miss something else from you, Trude? I don't think so. Luna from Italy. Maybe that was just... I was a little late starting today. I had some technical difficulties. So, Michael Cerveni. If there's no person and no volition, then what's up with the new catchphrase, spiritual bypassing? Yeah, we can't mix up the levels. The catchphrase, spiritual bypassing, oh boy, I've seen it applied in so many different ways. If I try to take on a spiritual attitude to avoid confronting the feelings that I'm having as a mechanism of suppression of my own feelings, at best we could call that spiritual bypassing. Now, I've seen a lot of people who've had deep spiritual experiences but not want to let go of their psychological credentials. And therefore, they don't want to engage in non-dual conversation at all. Or anything non-dual about no person and stuff. Oh, they immediately say that's spiritual bypassing. No, it's only spiritual bypassing if you are unwilling to be present with the feelings in the body, the sensations, the resistance, the thoughts, the whole picture of the conditioned self. If you're trying to avoid the direct confrontation with that, then you're trying to bypass. You're trying to explain it away. But if you recognize it for what it is nothing but thought. It is nothing but emotional patterns. It's nothing but sensations. It's nothing but thoughts about the past and the future. And you are able to be completely with it, even as during a tsunami when it's all erupting and all this old patterns and stuff are coming, which they will. You are not spiritual bypassing. You are doing exactly the opposite. You are abiding in the self without moving. You are Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree saying, I am not moving. I am not moving from this place. That was not bypassing anything. And he could have been accused of that. I mean, ran off on his wife, on his kids, right? Buddha was a deadbeat dad by our modern definition, right? So on that level, the idea of it is, be very careful who you talk to about there's no person and there's no volition, there's no free will. Because it's going to be understood at different levels. Now, I know you and I know where you are, so I can say clearly about it that at the level of your understanding, you can see that the person we take ourselves to be is, in fact, a mental construct and not the reality. It is conditioning and not truth. Right? So knowing that, but at the same time recognizing that recognition doesn't immediately get rid of all of the momentum of those conditioned patterns, but empowers you to remain motionless in this place of abiding as the self while they erupt and discharge themselves. That is the most powerful place you can be in. All other ways of dealing with emotional trauma and the like pales in comparison to that, because all the rest of them rely on some kind of personal thing, some kind of personal ability, some kind of personal power or knowledge. And therefore they will not have the same kind of strength and might be subject to spiritual bypassing. That is, trying to avoid these feelings. But this, the recognition of who you really are and that there is no person, it is the ultimate tool in that toolbox, even from a therapeutic point of view. So, hope that answers it for you, Michael. Hello, Steffi, Namaskaram Ji, and the whole Satsang tribe. Is there such a thing as causality, and does free will exist? Dankeschön. Thanks a lot. I love you. Love you too, Steffi. Well, as I was just explaining with, I was talking about to somebody else. Oh, but just with Michael about the person and volition. And right now, please don't go running out and telling everybody, hey, there's no free will, there's no causality, you guys are all nuts. Please don't do that. It won't serve any purpose, it won't help, it won't do any good, right? They won't get it, right? One has to come to see these things and go through various levels of understanding, okay? Ultimately, there are no levels of understanding, but let's deal with this. The idea of cause and effect. Right? Let's just break it down. This is what Buddha did. So I have this on good authority. Just break it down. This event, an event takes place, followed by another event, followed by another event, followed by another event. Right? We all know this is what we see. One event happening after another. And we have memory, right? So we remember the events that happened. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. In our minds, there are these distinct events that are taking place. Right? Now, this event happened, then this event happened, then this event happened, then this. Now look for yourself. Look really closely for yourself at this series of events. Is there anything in the event that just happened, that tells you conclusively that it happened because the previous event happened? Now really look. Put aside the assumption that it did. This is what everybody believes. The idea of cause and effect, we apply and we say this happened because this happened. Now the actual experience you have is this happened, then this happened. See if you can find any evidence of a causal relationship. Can't find it. And you can see that that's an assumption. Cause and effect is an assumption projected on a series of events. There's no evidence whatsoever that this caused that. I don't care what it is. Me leaving the heat on and the water boiling over, or the milk boiling over. The heat was left on. The heat was there. The milk was there. The milk boiled. A series of events that took place. Was there, in fact, is there in the actual events themselves proof, concrete proof, that this caused that? Now, this is very subtle. This is the kind of inquiry most people don't do because we just assume that it is. Nobody questions it. Now, if that's the case, we have to look really, really close, because at what point did this event end and this event start? I mean, when you really zoom in at a microscopic level and you see that this event and this event themselves were made up of dozens, hundreds, thousands of smaller events, right? Getting you all the way up to this thing that my mind now goes, this event happened. Well, but it didn't just happen. It went, right? And this one went, now, time slicing. And you find literally thousands of events, each one could be regarded as a cause and effect. And at what point did the cause become the effect? Now, when you really look at it, you see the cause and effect is simply a projection of our minds for us to try to explain what we can't explain. How or why did something happen? The only thing you can say is, it happened. And even its happening, made up by, it doesn't matter how thinly you slice it, you're just going to find yet another spontaneous cause and effect. Two aspects of the same thing. So, in fact, what you could say is that there isn't a series of events, there's only one event that is constantly unfolding itself. Where does one start and the other end? Where does the effect become the cause? You keep breaking it down, and you can't find the crossover point. They are one. They are simply happening. Neither is a cause and neither is effect. And so you can then say with authority, there is neither cause nor effect. Not really. Now that is an existential view, a cosmological view that you're not going to find anywhere else. But look at it. To me, it's self-evidently true. Now again, please do not go telling your friends, right, until they're ready to look at something like this. Because they're going to think you're nuts, right? And they're going to think, yeah, well, so what's the point? How does that help me in my everyday life? Well, on the surface, it doesn't. But what it's doing is bringing about a shift in your perception. If you really see that, you stop looking for the cause of this moment, and you just are present in this moment. The whole cause and effect thing, it sets people into the process of trying to control what's happening in this moment by controlling the events that lead up to it. This is, and whether that be, the success approach and taking massive action, doing all these things so you get the big success. Whether it's, defense, I'm going to have all my missiles and stuff. Whether it's law of attraction, I'm going to raise my vibration to bring about this thing. All of it, you can see, are ways of trying to control what in fact you can't control. And they're all based on the idea that there's a series of events and I can control them. And I want to control them, and I need to control them. But if you really see this clearly, you go, oh, I don't need to control anything. This is simply, everything is just happening. When I surrender to that, I find the harmony. I harmonize with it, and I find it is totally benevolent. It knows what it's doing. The intelligence is unfolding itself all the time, and I don't have to worry about a damn thing. And so it can liberate you from all of that. But again, don't go talking about this at parties. Thank you, Stephanie. That was beautiful. And Michael, and I think Marguerite, yes. Yours was like, yeah, the cause and effect. Yeah, now I remember who I was talking about. And there's Vernon. Hello, Vernon. Happy Girl. Hello, everyone. Is mind reading possible? And how can it be that one can intuitively notice that something is wrong with a beloved person that, for instance, lived on the other side of the planet? Thanks. Is mind reading possible? Yes, but not in the sense that most people think. Not in the sense of one mind reading another. Because there aren't many minds. A mind is just a thought. It is a collection of thoughts. Mind is not personal. The thoughts that pass through your awareness, you call them my thoughts. They're not. They're just thoughts, modulations of this infinite sea of consciousness, of which you are aware. And my thought is another thought. There's no sense of possessiveness in consciousness. It's just thoughts passing by. Now, if you recognize yourself as the infinite consciousness, the one infinite consciousness, which is the goal of this. The boundary between self and other disappears, and the hearts of others are known. You don't need to know the thoughts that appear to be coagulating over there any more than I need to know the waves that are happening, in Hawaii right now. I have no need to know that. And frankly, anybody who wants to read minds has to be out of theirs. Why in the world do I want to deal with what's going on in people's minds? Right? So people have an intuitive sense energetically of what people are thinking and feeling, because it's not just thoughts. There's an energetic thing there that everybody can pick up on. Right? And that energetic connection that we have, which is truly actually our oneness, misunderstood as connection, that does not know space and time. So yes, people you're close to, you're going to feel them. You're going to say, oh wow, something's up with. And you can get so attuned to it that you can know exactly what it is, who it is, what's going on, and what they need. Now, that needs to happen as a result of an opening of the heart. If it doesn't, it becomes something the ego likes, and it becomes a method of control or propping up its own arrogance. Right. Again, these things are possible, but don't pursue them. If they happen on your road to awakening, great. If they don't, also great. Right? But know for a fact, if you're on this road to awakening, they're not going to happen if there's a possibility they can distract you from the path. Right? Don't seek these kinds of things. They do happen. A lot of what you see of psychics and that sort of thing, some of it is genuinely intuitive. I've met some. Some of them are just really, really good con men. They're just really adept at making it appear as though they know things when they don't actually aren't getting it. They're basically frauds. There's a lot of those, right? Now, there are some that are actually real, right? But it's not really. That's again. What's more important? To be able to read a mind, or to know who you are, to be free of your own mind. Right? Become free of your own mind, then the rest will really take care of itself. Thank you, happy girl. Hello, Facebook user. Hi from Lake Constance, Germany. Oh, it must be Hendrik, unless there's somebody else in Lake Constance. Juliana. Hello, G. I have trust issues because I never felt safe in my family. Also, my parents often lied to me. How can I overcome that problem? Thanks a lot. Wow. Well, at the heart of it, remember, it's when you say, I have trust issues, let's break that down. Because when we say things like, I have trust issues, we take these things on as if they're permanent characteristics of ourselves. And we get so used to it, we think of ourselves. Our sense of identity is as somebody who has trust issues. Because that's my sense of identity, I'm going to attract around myself all sorts of beliefs that support it. And the focus of my attention is then going to amplify that which confirms this sense of identity, and it will filter out anything that contradicts it. Right? So the first thing is let's break this down. Do you have trust issues, or was your nervous system taught that it could not trust the people it was supposed to trust? Now there's a big difference there. One, it's a personal characteristic that I'm stuck with and I got to try to do something about. The other is, it's a set of programmed responses that I'm quite capable of doing something about because they aren't me. Right? I don't have trust issues. My nervous system rightfully, intelligently recognized that it could not trust the environment and the people in it was supposed to be able to trust. And so it had to take other actions to keep you safe. And that action was to, look, I can't trust these people. I don't know what to do. And all the nervous system does then, is then it just extrapolates it to assume that, well, especially when you're little. If this happens when you're little, this is your entire reality. So the nervous system naturally concludes, well, I guess people can't be trusted. I had the same thing. I couldn't trust anybody. It took a long time for me to be able to put trust in. And it still lingers, right? Because I was completely on my own, right? I got no help, right? So the people you're supposed to trust, you can't trust them. What do? Right? You compensate for it. That's what the nervous system does. If it can't compensate for it, you die. I mean, it's a life and death thing. So you're looking now at the way your nervous system was programmed, right? It had to assume they couldn't be trusted because they weren't, and find other ways of interacting with the world to get your needs met. And the nervous system, as it had to at that time, just concluded this is the nature of reality. It became an energetic assumption about the nature of reality that nothing can be trusted. As the sense of identity grows and comes online, that sense of distrust now becomes the mind saying, I have trust issues, right? No, you don't. You are quite capable of trusting, right? Your body just doesn't know how to do it. It doesn't know how to be in an environment where it can trust. It doesn't know how to discern who's trustworthy and who isn't, right? And if you can't discern who's trustworthy and who isn't, what's the safest position to take? Nobody's trustworthy. Because I can't take the risk of trusting somebody who isn't trustworthy. So, what's my choice? Okay, I take that risk, or I just cut everybody off. Your nervous system, because its only interest is safety, will say, I cut everybody off. Boom. We'll trust no one. And that can even become a very deep, energetic vow. I will never trust anyone. It did for me. I won't. I can't, to I won't. I mean, it's like, what a waste of time. Don't trust anyone. They always let you down. And lo and behold, I kept running into situations where they always let me down. They would betray my trust. Sometimes brutally. Sometimes a brutal betrayal of trust, right? But my nervous system didn't know how to survive in any other environment, right? It could survive. Nothing to trust, I can survive in that. No one can't ask for help, I can survive in that. I can't ask for help? I don't know what to do with that. So the first step is to realize you don't have trust issues. So stop thinking of yourself in those terms. Your nervous system rightfully learned that it could not trust and therefore had to compensate for that and find other ways of surviving. And it just never learned any other way to do it. It went to the extreme, said, look, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to discern whether or not somebody's trustworthy. So we'll just assume everybody isn't. End of story. Energetic assumption. That's where they come from. Right? That's what they're all about. This whole process by which I deconstruct all of this and show you what's happening and reveal to you that it's not you, that you are still the original innocent you, completely untouched by all of this, completely protected. You're what was being protected by all of this, to keep you safe and intact. This is the whole point of inner reconciliation. I've got all sorts of courses on it. I've got the one coming up called Your 4 Powers of Creation. It dives into it, as I have to do it in every one of these. I dive into how these whole things work, where beliefs come from, energetic assumptions, our relationship with our nervous system, our energy system. Even though the subject varies in different focus, it's all inner reconciliation, and it all talks about exactly the same stuff. So there's I have all sorts of resources available for you, Juliana, and maybe you'll even join my class. Just go to gpwalsh.com/shop and join that one. But even so, I've got free videos on YouTube. I've got these satsangs I do every week where I answer questions. And I will be making some of you may notice I make excerpts on various questions I'm putting out on YouTube as well. I'm also I'm collecting all of those together to put on my site. So there'll be a nice organized place with all of my meditations, all of my satsang excerpts, and all of my EFT stuff, all part of my site. Very easy for folks to get to. That's coming. And there's Hendrik. Faith. I hear people talking about how life is beautiful and it is a miracle. I don't see that. Yes, I see some beautiful things here and there, but I don't see life as a wonderful experience. Right. And you can't see life as a wonderful experience as long as you want it to be different than what it is. Somehow we have to get to the point where we value our own experience and we stop suffering it. If things are supposed to be different than they are, I can't possibly think life is good. I can't think of it fair. I can't think of it's benevolent. I can't think of it as a miracle. Right? The biggest miracle there is, my dear, dear girl, is you. The self-aware being that is you. Oh, self-conscious entity, aware of the feeling, aware of the world, aware of the contradiction between the miracle of the world and my life, aware of my broken heart, my hopes that never fulfilled, the frustrations that I've known. There's a conscious awareness at the center of that. And I want to bring your attention to that because that's the miracle. The rest of this stuff, yes, it's important, but it's not nearly as important as this. Because this is where you find the power to reconcile with your life the way it is. I mean, if I described the first 30 years of my life, with the exception of those moments of incredible spiritual insight and guidance that I received, it was a parallel line between this just complete and total suffering and misery up to the time I was 19. And then this split took place, where on one hand, I was just deep in constant spiritual experience, and on the other hand, utter chaos and betrayal and struggle in my human life. And that happened all the way up to the time I was, well, into my 30s. It was in the beginning of my 30s that it finally began to start putting things together. And just the energy, you could say, of karma, the momentum, dysfunction and stuff, finally began to dissipate. And it became, and I began to get some kind of a sense of equanimity about it. But if I looked back and said, life wasn't a miracle, at the time I was completely baffled, completely bewildered. I thought when I had my spiritual experience, it was it. Boy, it was rainbows and unicorns from then on out. God, what a shock when it wasn't. But every single time it just kept calling me to a deeper and a deeper place. And eventually I recognized just the incredible momentum of the vasanas and the energy built up over thousands of lifetimes. Right? It wasn't just going to disappear like that. So eventually I could come to see that this life was a miracle. It had to happen just the way it did. And not one thing could have possibly been different. In order for me to be sitting here, knowing what I know, terrible use of that word, just allowing what I can allow, and being able to share with you what I share. It was because of that. Was that a miracle? Absolutely. World-class miracle. Was it a fun miracle? No, it wasn't. But absolutely necessary. So, your life isn't a mistake. You didn't get off the path somewhere. You didn't do something terrible in a past life and you're being punished. Everything you're feeling, the frustrations, the struggle, all of it is growing you into the spiritual maturity and spiritual power that is your birthright. And it can be developed in no other way. Your life is ideal for you, right? And if you can just stop comparing it to some other life, stop thinking that it should be different, or I'm supposed to have these kinds of things, or I want, if you can just put all of that aside, stop comparing yourself to anybody else because you are incomparable, you'll find that miracle that is your life. You'll find it right in the middle of the adversity. And in fact, the adversity will cease to be a burden. You'll be carrying the cross, but you won't even know it. It will be so light. As Christ said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. This is what he meant. This is a total to surrender to the death of the separate self. And this is what is necessary to put an end to the separate self. Your life. There's nothing wrong with your life. Nothing. That maybe your mind doesn't want to accept that because it wants a different life. But there's absolutely nothing wrong. This is the way it was meant to be. Surrender to it, and you'll find that it is absolutely perfect, and that in fact it is a wonderful experience. And when it fulfills itself in spiritual awakening, you will say, it was worth it. Thank you, my dear. Hello, Sally. Good to see you. Truth Loops, love to you too. Hendrik, I knew it was you. Sandra, hello, Sandra. Hello to you. Annette Rockstar. Good evening, everyone. What exactly is emptiness? What a beautiful question. Shunyata. Emptiness is, we got it from the Buddhist scriptures. It's the word Buddha used to try to convey the nature of being. And the word in Sanskrit is shunyata. It's the same word, shunyata. I think it's sunyata without the H in Pali, which is the language Buddha actually taught. And it is the deepest insight into the nature of the self. It is the nature of the infinite. What it means is simply this. Take yourself and just put your attention on the sense of being. I started this whole satsang with that. Right? Put everything else aside except the sense I am. I exist. Now everybody has that, right? There's nobody here that, if I say, does anybody here not exist, I won't get any hands going up, right? Existence is simply the presupposition, isn't it? We don't pay much attention to it. So I'm asking you to simply pay attention to that simple sense I am. Just the sense. Now don't add anything to it. Don't mix it up with anything. Don't say I am this or that. I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I'm old, I'm young, I'm in this country or I'm in that country. Nothing. I am full stop. Just the sense of being without any additional attributes added on to it. This can be a little difficult for some people, simply because we're not used to this, right? We don't pay any attention to the sense of being. Our attention is always on the external world. So just I am, just that sense I am. It's not even a thought, is it? It's subtler than thinking. It's not a feeling. It's subtler than emotion, and it's more subtle than sensation. It's very quiet. Now notice, when it doesn't have any reference, it's not relating to anything else. It's not mixing up with anything else. It's just its pure self. It is qualityless. It's empty. It is empty of everything other than itself. It is pure emptiness. Your being is emptiness. It is not something that is even empty. It is emptiness itself. This is just the sense I am without anything else added onto it. It's like space that doesn't contain any objects, just the space. Now you can't even conceive of space without the objects. You can't, without objects you can't measure. It's like here and not here at the same time. It's evanescent. Pure, but yet there is space, which is the potential to contain any object, right? So this emptiness, it's like space. With no content, how big is it? How small is it? It's dimensionless. With no content, is there a beginning or an end to it? It is totally empty. It is emptiness itself. It is pure shunyata. This is you. This is the emptiness. And that emptiness permeates everything. So now, in space there are objects, right? Objects appear. The objects, like the computer you're looking at, when it's zoomed down to the microscopic level, the subatomic level, it's almost completely empty space, right? Everything is absolutely permeated by emptiness. An experience you have in your life, your body, a relationship, any kind of an experience, right, only rises and falls within this emptiness. It too is permeated by the emptiness that is your being. But this emptiness is not nothingness, is it? You not only are, you're aware of it. So emptiness is consciousness. Consciousness completely untied to anything at all. Just awareness. Pure awareness. Pure emptiness. Self-aware emptiness. And that emptiness is everything. The nature of everything is emptiness. In emptiness, everything shifts and changes. Everything comes and goes. Forms come and go. But they can only come and go because of emptiness. Your emptiness allows your human life to grow. If you weren't emptiness, you were a fixed thing of some sort, your growth would have a limit. Your experience would have a limit. You'd be stuck with what you are. This is what you are, that's it. Because you're not empty. But the emptiness is what allows you to grow, to evolve, to develop, to learn, to expand, to take on new things, to have different experiences. You can have those because your nature is emptiness. And notice, I didn't tell you about it. This isn't philosophical. I just brought you to your own sense of being. Look at the sense of being. Don't attach anything to it. And what is it? Pure being. Empty of everything other than itself. That's the non-dual experience. You're not two there. How does that do it? How's that a nut rock star? What exactly is emptiness? You. You without anything other than you. Sally Atherton, Archerton. Is consciousness impersonal? Are you saying is consciousness in the person, or is consciousness impersonal? I'm not quite sure. I'll check down at the bottom, Sally. If you can, I want to make sure that I answer that. Well, I can do this. Is it in the person? No. Let's just start with that. Consciousness is not in a person, right? That would mean that there's this person and that consciousness got inside it somehow, right? And that the person is a reality and consciousness is some concomitant of this person, this personality. Right? Consciousness is impersonal. That is, it's not a person. As I was just talking to Annette about the emptiness. Emptiness is not a person. A person are attributes. They're definable, recognizable, discernible qualities, right? Gender and personality and foibles, idiosyncrasies, characteristics, the way they talk, accent, the way they smile or the way they laugh or something like that. These are all various kinds of qualities that are perceived by consciousness. They don't perceive themselves, but they don't limit consciousness. There's no quality that isn't perceived by consciousness. So consciousness is empty of all qualities, and that's what allows all qualities to be. Right? And so consciousness itself is not personal. This is a very significant non-dual inquiry that needs to be done. Right? Because the consciousness which you are experiencing all the time, you're experiencing it right now, right? Consciousness is hearing my words, right? That's self-evident, right? But your mind has told you, has come up with all sorts of ideas as to what this consciousness is. And it says it's a person. It's a function of a little part of the brain somewhere in the frontal lobe. It's an emergent property of matter. That consciousness is confined to this body. This is our beliefs about it. And there we think that, consciousness, and we start thinking of consciousness as this other thing out there somewhere, this amorphous thing that we have to get. We don't realize that consciousness is us, and the ideas about it have all been produced by the mind. That the consciousness listening to my words right now is the infinite impersonal consciousness. It is God that is hearing my words right this instant. But it has been misidentified. That, no, that's the person. And then we think, non-dual. So then I'm going to get to the super conscious, the super duper consciousness, the awareness of the awareness, right? The ultimate 8D state. Right? And it's right here. This is it. These are all falsities about the consciousness that's hearing my words right now. You are that, always have been that, always will be that. And there's only one of them. Look for yourself. Go to the place of the I am and your awareness of the I am. And in that, without mixing it up with any other thing, without giving it a name, see if you can find a boundary to it. If there's no boundary, then there's only one of them. Which means the boundary, the sense of me having a consciousness and you having a consciousness, is an illusion projected by the mind. And it's not real. Faith, yes, betrayed many times by life. I love hearing this, that the essence of the self is love. And you love hearing it because it's true. You know it's true, right? The problem is what you're knowing in your heart and what you're experiencing in your life don't match right now, right? And somehow you're thinking, I've got to get out of this life. But you don't have to. You have to let this, which you intuitively know is true, take over your life, permeate it, completely infect it and colonize it. Right? But you can only do that if you stop rejecting it. Yeah, you've been betrayed many times by life. And the reason we get betrayed by our experience of life is so our attention will turn from trying to get something from life that it cannot give you, and turn your attention to the place where it really exists, where you can't lose it. That's why the betrayals take place. If it didn't, you'd be addicted to the life for a different reason. And you'd be postponing your awakening by God knows how many lifetimes. I'm speeding up a little bit here because it's getting kind of late. Hey, awakened. Hi, Jonas. Good to see you. Ah, Lydia. Lovely, lovely. Hello, hello, hello. Anna G, hello. Good to see you. Hey, there's Merck. I always found it funny when people told me you have to find yourself. Am I not already me? But maybe not the me I thought I was. How did we get to be so mesmerized by thoughts anyway? Well, you know, I can go into detail explaining how the nervous system works, but since you already have a certain sense of the non-dual, I'll put it in more blunt terms for you, right? Who got mesmerized by thoughts? We got mesmerized by a thought? Can the self be mesmerized? Can it be anything other than the self? Can awareness be any less than awareness? Can awareness be mesmerized? Or is a mesmerized person someone who believes they're mesmerized by thought itself just an image appearing to awareness? Take an even bigger step back. Can you, pure awareness, be mesmerized? Or is a mesmerized person simply a thought formation you are looking at and mistaking for yourself? Contemplate that, my friend. The two Renaissance. I think you're new. Blue says, sounds like you're sitting under a waterfall. Is it raining? No, is it that loud? My refrigerator turns on. Hold on a second. There's also a funny noise when I'm running video on my laptop here. For some reason, it starts making a shh sound. So you can pretend it's a waterfall. It'll be like nature. It'll be really nice and pretty. Aline, could you say something about mental illness? What is it about when the mind turns against you? Wow. Well, first off, the ego is inherently mentally ill. If you don't know who you are, you're ill. You're mentally ill. You are suffering from schizophrenia. You are believing yourself to be something you are not. And the entire world is mentally ill. Right? All of our systems, our governments, our economic system, political system, religious system, cultural systems, they are all mentally ill. Because none of them know who or what we are. All of them are making these assumptions. And out of that assumption, the mind will form itself and act accordingly. What is regarded as mental illness is when someone is, their behavior or thought patterns or beliefs are aberrant to what is regarded as normal. I'm mentally ill according to the conventional rules and understandings of this culture. I am. I am completely aberrant to the way most people think. Matter of fact, all of you sitting here are. Because we don't agree with the assumptions that are the inherent norm within the culture. Now, with some people, they can get so far out that their lives really begin to fall apart. They can't relate in the slightest. I'm aberrant, but I know how to relate to it, so I still can get my needs met and do things that I need to do. Some people can't, and they get so far out of it, and they are so out of balance that they can't function anymore. There are others who were so terribly abused as children that they simply become dysfunctional in the world. They don't know how to be, they don't know how to act, they don't ask for anything, they can't take care of themselves, simply out of abuse. Or they become criminals because they don't know how to be. This is all they've seen. All they've seen, they've been surrounded by depravity, deprivation, and violence, and that becomes their way of life. We cast them aside too with no understanding. But let's just look at your own unruly mind that isn't willing to pay attention to you, that seems to have a mind of its own. Right? It's in that sense, it's not a mind that has a mind of its own. It is simply the way your nervous system was conditioned. It's conditioned into patterns. It wants to keep those patterns going as long as it can. It offers resistance when you try to change those patterns. Right? And that is the intrusive mind, the unruly mind, the mind that you feel is turned against you. It isn't. You've turned against it. You have turned in a different direction than this train was going. So it's not fighting you. It's just going where it was going. There's nobody there turning against you. There's nobody defying you. There's nobody doing anything. So come back to this place of the peacemaker. Come to this place where, okay, I see where I'm trying to head, and I understand what's going on in my whole energy system. And be in that place of total understanding. And even what's the word? Kind of this loving, unconditional acceptance. And you'll find that the mind isn't as big an enemy as you thought it was, and that the mental illness from the point of view of a mind that won't behave is simply because you have been feeding it so well for so long and training it to be that way for so long that it isn't going to turn on a dime and now start supporting you. It has to be lovingly brought into that relationship. And that's by seeing that what the mind thinks isn't true. They're arbitrary, they're made up, they're stories. None of what the mind tells you is true. You can start with that. But then don't defy it. Don't try to push it away. Don't turn it into an enemy. That's just a concept. It's not an enemy. It's just a badly trained dog. That's the best way to say about it. Anja, I feel a strong pull to worry about the future. Everything seems very unstable and chaotic, as if the world makes little sense. Well, okay, let's see. The strong pull to worry about the future, we can do something about that. Everything seems to be unstable and chaotic. That's because it is. All of the institutions that we have relied on for several hundred years, and the bigger, the macro, for about 12,000 years, ever since the arrival of agriculture and the formation of cities, is falling apart. This is an epoch shift. This is not just a correction of the market. This is an epochal shift, as if the world makes little sense. And we're coming to see that it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. How does the complete unbridled destruction of the environment for market for your stock market value, how does that make any sense? It doesn't. Simple as that. It doesn't. Right? It does. If you think, making a profit on the stock market is the most important thing in the world, and the people who run the world, that's what they think. And so they don't see a problem with pushing us to utter extinction. That is the insanity of greed. It's a parasite that cannot see it's killing the host. Right? It just can't see it. So, let's not be unrealistic. It is unstable. It is chaotic. We are seeing a complete and total demolition of every system on the planet. This is what Christ meant, and other traditions as well, by the end of the world. Right? A complete collapse of this cycle. The Kali Yuga, many different, the Mayan calendar and all of that. This period of time is a period of chaos. It is the fire out of which a phoenix is going to arise. Right? So, now, let's look at your worry about the future. Now that we're going, oh, okay, right? We're not pulling this out of the fire, right? We're not just going to find Band-Aids that are going to patch up the way the current things work, right? If we don't get our act together, COVID is an opening act. Right? The threat is going to have to become so big that we finally yield up our own arrogance. And we will eventually. So in the meantime, all you can do is to recognize that the pull to worry about the future is, first and foremost, a complete waste of time. Christ put it beautifully. Which one of you, by worrying, can add a single inch to your height? Can change anything. So the worry is the way the mind consoles itself, thinking it's doing something about it. And all it's doing is sucking energy that could go into creative solutions and creative endeavors. Okay? So, worry is a habit. And worrying about the future is a habit that is universally shared right now. How do you do something? How do you deal with that? Okay, you bring your attention to right now. The future isn't here. Nobody knows what the future is going to be. Nobody knows when the end will be. Right? Even Christ said that. Nobody knows when the end will be. Not referring to the destruction of the earth in fire and brimstone by an angry God. That angry God does not exist. It is the final collapse of the material model and the sense of the separate self. That's what it represents. You want the collapse of the separate self. Make it very much about your personal realization and not about the world. Because it isn't about the world. It's about you. Your worry about the future. Right? Nobody knows the future. You don't know what your next thought is going to be. Let alone what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. What's going to happen is going to happen. It needs to happen. It will happen. You cannot be touched by any of it because you are the self. It may sound like it's totally out there. As I said, it's like worrying about the future is a habit of the mind. If you recognize it as a bad habit, as an addiction, right? You can recognize that there's only one way out of it, And that is to stop giving it your energy. Bring your attention back to right now, this moment. Who am I? The antidote for what's happening in the world is the insight of I exist, I am. Who am I? Who is it? Who am I? Without any reference to anything else. From here, I will find whatever I need for out there. But it's only going to come from here. We've exhausted every possibility that the world has to offer. We have. Nothing the world offers at this point is going to work. We must go to a completely new level of consciousness. That's the only thing that can fix it. Einstein said it. You can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. And that's what we're trying to do. So, you have to find this new level of consciousness. And what is that? It is myself. It is simply knowing myself as I am. I am running out of time. How many more do I have here? Oh boy, quite a few. Pick up on a few things here. Thank you, GP. So without memory and the thought, there is only now a stone, and there's only now falling, and there's only now screaming. It's just my husband mind which binds them together. Yes. It's exactly true. Yeah. It's like when you're watching a movie, right? The cause of what's happening in this moment here is not an event that passed by. It's because that's the film that passed in front of the lens at that moment and projected it on the screen. You could cut those all up and get completely disparate things. And even if you got a completely disparate thing there, your mind would still try to find cause and effect in the whole thing. It's what it does. So, yep. Yes, there's only this moment. Yeah, there's a stone. The stone falls. The stone hits a toe. There's an ow, right? There's feelings, right? It's all right now. Lily, how much does personality change once realized? Quickness of thoughts, amount of animation, impulsivity? What I would recommend is become realized and find out. I don't like describing experience, because then what happens is your mind tries to imitate the experience and not get to the substance that produced it. Okay? Find out who you are. Forget what it'll be like, right? And instead become realized. Put your attention on the sense I am. That's you. And now don't mix it up with anything. That's you. That's all you have to do. At that point, you're doing the only practice you need to do. It's not even really a practice. You're just constantly bringing your attention back to you without anything extra added. I'm just scanning through here for Sue says, yes, I made the live, and then she said, were you listening to my conversation before Satsang? You're talking exactly what my friend said to me, just drop the fear. Yes, I was cosmically looking in on you, Suzanne. No, wasn't doing that. If we are pure knowing, is this pure knowing moved by its own patterns of knowing? Knowing can't be moved. If you are pure knowing. Let's stop right there, Sabu. If we are pure knowing. Right? Notice, you're trying to figure out about pure knowing. The mind is desperately trying to turn this into a concept that you can chew over, right? Are you hearing my words? That's knowing. That's recognizing. It's cognizing, right? I don't mean, hey, are you hearing me or what? I don't mean it like that. I mean, just the experience. Right now, you are cognizing all the information coming from all of your senses. The hearing, the seeing, the feeling around you, the feeling of the chair under you, and the like. All of that's being cognized, right? There's that point of cognition. Now that is the point of knowing, isn't it? Prior to that, it's not known. After that, it's memory. This is the absolute point of knowing, right? Right here, right now. Now, this point of knowing can know all sorts of things can be happening, right? But is the knowing itself moved by any one of these? Does this knowing fade and become less knowing because there's events taking place? Does it become greater knowing, right, in order to look at something in great detail? Or is the knowingness absolutely constant? So that answers your question. It's not moved by the patterns of what is known or by the suffering. And in fact, it doesn't even call it suffering. Suffering is a name given to an event by the mind that says, I don't like it. All of which is being known by the mind. By awareness. By this pure knowingness. Which is clearly discerning this versus this versus this versus this. Clearly, discernment is there, discrimination is there, because there's a clear outline of quality and character to what is being experienced. But the knowingness itself, the knowingness that knows the experience, knows the mind's reaction to it, knows the mind suffering because of its reaction, understands the entire thing, even that understanding, which is the wisdom through which it's being seen, is all being known, cognized. So I don't have to replace this with some pure object of knowing. I am the pure knowingness. So you don't have to replace it. Right? Knowing no object. Right? You don't know peace. Peace is not a state. Oh, I'm at peace when I finally get rid of all these things that are... No. Knowingness is peace. Why? How is it peace? Because it is not changing. It is not moving. It is eternally still. And it's not even an it. It's you. It is what is perceiving. It is the actual, ultimate point of perception. I'm going to have to let it go because I'm scanning through here to... Jay. So listening to or reading spiritual scriptures or materials similar to techniques like EFT, post-awakening is what I'm talking about. I remember reading a story of a character in the Mahabharata where he realized, but he continued to listen to the Bhagavad teachings. Well, yeah. It's just different. There's nothing to gain anymore from it. You are the very same place where these scriptures came from, so it's like this recognition. Right? The I that is speaking from those scriptures and the I that's hearing them are one and the same, and there's the joy of that. Robert said, I can relate to your setup today with things going wrong. How can we keep cool with flat tires or anger from others? Yeah, I had a flat tire once. I had to cancel satsang because I could not get anywhere sitting because of a flat tire. Yeah. Um, how do we keep cool? Well, the ego can't, right? Because the ego is always taking a position. The way to keep cool under all circumstances is to drop any position, right? If I take a position, then I can't be cool about it. And I can't turn being cool into a position. I'm trying to feign now that it's okay, it's cool, right? When it isn't, right? As long as I think that this shouldn't be happening, I can't be cool with it. Right? The best you can do is, this is happening. Right? You could say, why is this happening? But it's a waste of time. You can never figure out why. But if you just say, is this happening? Yes. End of story. There's no need to explain it. Doesn't need a why. It just is. Does it contradict what you were expecting? Yes. Does that make it wrong? No. So if it's wrong because I was expecting something else and it should be different, I can't be cool. But if a flat tire happened, notice, not for or against it, not oh yay or oh that sucks, just flat tire happened. Neutral. Now I'm cool. And that's the only way to be cool. Totally cool. Thank you for that question about fear. GP, I sure do got a whole lot more than I asked for. Thank you indeed. I guess I need to practice grounding the attention in the present as much as I can. Yes. Yes, you do. It's a very powerful and significant practice to put yourself into, because you're just going to notice how the mind is always going to want to run. The mind, the ego, is never okay with right now. That's why we suffer. So become okay with right now. Keep bringing your attention. What's wrong right now? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I have to compare it to some imaginary time in the future, or some better time in the past, some idealized time in the past, for this moment to be anything other than perfect. Why do I know it's perfect? Because this is the moment that's happening. That's my definition of perfect. If your definition of perfect is, and you've got this nice criteria, this moment's never going to fit that. Never. But if you don't have any of that criteria, then this moment is perfect. It's the only definition of perfect you could have. Hello, Glenn. Good morning, all from New Zealand. Good morning to you. Oh, yeah, early Monday morning for you. Jay is laughing. Fiona. Always loving these insights and aha moments. Thanks, GP. From Greece. Yay. Ciara, if you desire security in your life and you try first to live that feeling in your internal world to manifest it outward, but you found that after some time you've not achieved it, what to do? Yeah, this is the problem with that whole metaphysical law of attraction approach. Because the underlying assumption is I just have to maintain this internal state long enough that the manifest world then will deliver me that. So to that state of mind, the internal state is secondary to the external state. And this is the way it's taught, this is the way most people practice it. You know, very few actually get beyond that. So all you're really doing is trying to manipulate your world of feeling in order to bring about the real thing, which is this set of circumstances, which means, in the case of desiring security, it means, I don't know, more money, a house, or a relationship, or something like that. Whatever the physical manifestation is supposed to look like. You know, the word manifest means an appearance of something else. Right? It's an appearance. It's not a reality. It's how something appears. It's a shadow. Right? It's like a face in the cloud. It's there for a moment, but that's not the reality of, oh look, I see a face. A face has manifested. But there's no real face there. It's only a perception. What I strongly recommend, if people are finding the disappointment that the law of attraction always leads to, right, to turn your attention not towards trying to find the feeling of security inside so that the external world now manifests security, but to forget the external world and to dive into what is the actual reality of security. Is security nothing more than a feeling I get, and it's always going to go up and down based on my circumstances, which I can't really control? Is that it? Well, then security is an illusion, it's a lie, and you might as well stop pursuing it because it's never going to be yours. So what's the actual source of security? Where can one find security? Well, we can only find security and stability in that which is actually stable and secure. In other words, that which does not change. It's the only place it'll be, right? You cannot find stability in things that are not inherently stable. Nor can you create some kind of feeling of stability that'll turn these unstable things into things that are stable. Can't do it. That's not possible. So what doesn't change? What's the only thing in your entire life that has actually been stable? Look, throughout your entire life. What has been the one thing that has been there the entire time? It has never changed. When you're 5, when you're 10, when you're 25, when you're 35, experience is constantly changing, thoughts constantly changing. Your loves, your desires, your interests, your preferences, all changed, right? Numerous times. Hasn't there been something there the entire time that didn't change? The sense I am. The knowingness, consciousness. That and that alone is stable. Know yourself as that, and you will have found permanent stability. And you will not worry one bit about what happens in the outside world, because it isn't stable, and it's never going to be. It will never become a stable place. It is impermanent by nature. Trying to make the impermanent permanent is what humanity has been killing itself trying to do. There's only one place you find that permanent stability, and that is your true nature. Find it there, and you will. And this can just fluctuate and change as much as it wants. You've found the hub of the wheel. You're no longer spinning, hoping the wheel is going to stop, because it won't. You'll be sitting at the hub and completely untouched. Thank you, Ciara. Septus, hello consciousness from Sweden, hello to you. Let's see, I got that. Plan on working on night shift. If you watch this later, say hi. Hi to you. So I got to Margit. Robert Hill, how does one connect with God? Robert, put everything aside. Bring your attention to the sense I am. Just your sense of being. Don't add anything to it. The sense I am. What's the word for God? The most significant ones, all the Old Testament, all the Bible. I am. The sense of existence that is God. It is not a person. It is this inner sense of being, the I am. That's God. God, meet Robert. Robert, meet God. What makes it seem like we control thought? Meaning the exact wording might be a surprise. The topic from one thought to another does seem to have a doer thread. Just like looking for cause and effect, look for the doer. Go back to where the thought first appeared. Did you make it? Can you find yourself there doing it? Again, I just point you to your own experience, but I point you to your experience without the overhead of the assumptions and beliefs we bring to the experience. Look at the experience directly. Can you find the doer? No. You can only find the done. So the doer is just assumed. And the done isn't a done at all. It is simply happening. Like blinking your eyes. Are you blinking? Yeah, you can try to control it, but normally they just blink. Nobody's doing it. Right? Your whole body works like that. Nobody digests your food. Nobody swallows your food. Nobody pumps your blood. Nobody's doing it. It's the Tao. It is just a happening. Lydia, thank you for giving me another view about no cause and effect. Do you think we can still affect another person in a supportive way? Yes, presence. You know this. Presence. You're creating an environment, as you know. You went through my EFT training. You're creating an environment. That environment is an environment of safety. Right? That environment of safety is the environment in which everything happens. Right? It creates the tone, the tenor. And everything will reflect that environment. So you're not actually affecting another person in that sense. You're not doing anything except showing up as the self. As this pure, open, spacious, safe place. And in that place there is no conflict. And that absence of conflict is what on the surface appears to affect the change. Robert, when I meditate, I'm able to go for a long time without having a single thought. But then it makes me sleepy, almost always fall asleep. I don't feel bliss or God or anything. The object is to not go without having thoughts. That's not the point of meditation. You don't care whether thoughts are there or not. The point of meditation is turn your attention towards that which is aware. You say, I am able to go for long. Who's that I? That's a thought. It's a subtle thought. It's not a conscious thought. But there's a thought there. There's an assumption. Makes me sleepy and I almost fall asleep. Is there not something aware of the sleepiness and that I am falling asleep? Put your attention there. Don't look for the feeling of bliss or God or anything. I'm speeding up because I'm way over time. And I always hate to just cut it off with questions still in the queue. Kimberly, wow, that's powerful. I'm changing my patterns. Yay, good. Elaine, thank you. David, wise and insightful answer all these questions. So grateful to Peter Satsang. I got to put this up. My marketing folks will criticize me if I don't at least tell people about the upcoming class. Thank you, David and Elaine. You guys are great. Gee, I'd like to express this feeling of gratitude for what you are doing. Would be insufficient. It is sufficient, Ava. Ivan says my first oh geez. I can't handle all these questions. I can't get to all these questions, I'm afraid. Let's see. Part 1, part 2. Don't worry about it. Ivan, really, don't worry about it. The meaninglessness you're feeling is a shift taking place. Yes, it's meaningless, right? Because all of the old ambitions you had, the desire, the energy, the aspirations, were all of the ego. They weren't you. Right? As those fall away, it's going to feel as like your whole life is contracting. Think of yourself as the caterpillar now is getting stuck in the cocoon. Oh my God, I'm dying. I'm melting. I'm melting. Right? You're not. Right? Believe me, that cocoon is going to open and you're going to find your wings. So don't worry about it. Just go through the motions if you have and keep doing this inquiry. Right? We're doing the inquiry for self-realization not to get particular results. Kimberly, open mind for your feeling realization, not the person, not the owner of the consciousness, not the story, gives me more peace. How do I know if this is spiritual bypassing? It's a paradox, says Ophiax. It's not. You're not the person, right? If you're trying to avoid the feelings, right, then you're bypassing. But if it's a sheer recognition, and you're willing to feel all of the feelings within the system, and you're willing to do that as consciousness and not as the person, you are not bypassing. You are actually at the heart of the only real solution to it. So, there you are. Penny, Anja, Penny, thank you. Janis, thank you for this deep as always satsang. Oh, you're welcome. Janis, my good buddy in Greece. Anja, thank you, Duji. Big help, hear it over and over again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for another beautiful. Thank you, Jay. Thanks, Jonas. Thank you, Anja. Thank you, Gunnar. We're so grateful for your kindness and healing grace, sharing peace with us. Oh, thank you. Oops. Oh my goodness. All of a sudden. Love your teaching. I'm just scanning through here real quick, see if there's other comment. What a great happiness was. Thank you for the attention. Welcome, Lily. For your kindness and healing. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Edeline. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Obiex. Thank you, Danielle. Hello, Danielle. Wonderful, Danielle. All right, everybody. Wow. They keep going longer and longer. It's just this thing of mine. I hate cutting it off when there's still questions in the queue, and I know I can't give in-depth answers to all of them. But anyway, all my dear friends, my dear friends, my friends at the EWN network, and I am, for lack of a better word, promoting my latest upcoming class. I hope you all come in and join in. And as always, if for some reason you can't afford it, I usually have some kind of scholarship, something I can work out with people. I know that because of the exchange rate in some countries, this is, it can be an enormous amount of money. I've even have some people who volunteer to help people who can't really make it. So if you really have a need for it, you have to contact me and ask me. Send a message to support@gpwalsh.com. But otherwise, if you can, please join. I think you're going to find it to be a very powerful and a very insightful workshop with lots of material to go over and over and over again, not just the 2 hours. And in these workshops, I'm actually on Zoom, so we can see each other. I get to see you. You get to see me all the time, but I get to see you, which is nice. We get to talk with each other. We get to actually interact. And I can go in more depth than I can, obviously, with this. So, all right, my dear friends, my dear friends. Until next week, or sometime in between. Namaste.